think we need some working definitions of what racism and white supremacy means for the 2020s, for the new era of of life that we live in today. Because there are clearly some misunderstandings of what racism and white supremacy is. The term has just lost all of its, as more powerful than ever. The idea and the concept of white supremacy is as powerful and as pervasive as ever. But the understanding of it and the ways in which it is used is far more wrongfully used now than ever. I mean, I won't say ever, but I mean, it's just like people just really don't understand, right? Like, white supremacy is the thing. Racism is this brainchild.
Prick. Watch where you walking, bitch.
What did you... Wait a minute. I'm white.
Where you going? Don't you ignore me. This is a perfectly good moment to throw your life away.
It's all about white supremacy. And it starts with the colonization of, like the European expansion, I should say, in the 16th century, right? This is where white supremacy originates. It originates in the 16th century with the expansion, the European expansion, starting, across, over into the Americas, and then trickling down into Africa, and then, going over into India, and then Southeast Asia, and down, So this is the European expansion and the colonization as a result that resulted from it, and the domination that came with it, going into places where people are communal, where people are hospitable, where they see guests and they see visitors, and they treat them with open arms and with dignity. But they didn't understand that the Europeans who were coming to visit were actually invaders and colonizers and some of the cruelest people in humanity. It didn't matter how glorious the past, how significant the civilization, how incredible the people. When Europeans came to a land, they destroyed and tried to excavate all of what it was. All we need to do is look at the museums across Europe. Look at the museums. Like, they're mostly and mainly highlighting stuff that they stole from these places that they now sell to us as barbaric and places without a history. Yet they pillaged from the 15th century, from the 16th, 17th, 18th century, these relics, these monuments that tell a completely different story, and they put them in their museums. So let's fast forward, because I don't want to make this into like a boring history lesson. European colonization and the European expansion has basically taken over the globe, right? Through economic infrastructure, through political force and will, through military might and outright bullying of other countries, overthrowing other countries, infiltrating other countries and supporting oppositions in other countries, and right, like anything you name it. And this is all in the service of white supremacy. This is all in the service of white supremacy and gaining access to power, to gaining power and wealth. And the power brokers in this country, in the United States, have always been white folks, no matter who they share their power with. No matter if they share that power or if they allow a black or a brown person or an Indian or a Pakistani or an Afghan or a black American or a Puerto Rican or a Dominican, if they put you in that position of power, your responsibility is to maintain those systems and those structures. If you disrupt those systems and those structures, you will be replaced. Period. And a lot of times when people of color are put into to positions within the system of racism and white supremacy, right, we often find it very difficult to go against the grain. And even going against the grain is so minuscule in terms of, the change and the possibility of making change. The changes are never systemic, usually. they're usually, situational. Between a couple of people, a handful of people can benefit from me being in a position of authority in a system of white supremacy. I can help a person standing in front of me and, provide them some sort of relief. But it's very difficult within systems of racism and white supremacy to affect change to broad swaths of community within that system.
Whoa, 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 hold it right there.
Hey, man.
Where's the gun, huh? Where's the gun? Go on, get out of here. Go do your little hyphy-fifey dances and a monkey shuffle somewhere else. This here bus is for kids with a future.
That's why we see the same kinds of, for the last 500-600 years, we see the same issues amongst the same people. You see the European, dominance, right? You see that like across the globe, even in places like the Middle East and different parts of Africa, you see the reverence that they have for Europeans. I mean, unfortunately, like they revere. I mean, I lived, I travel quite a bit and I see it and I'm like, it's dumbfounding. But it's not just them. I mean, it happens in the US too. Like there are black folks here who revere white folks for no other reason except that they're white. But this is what racism and white supremacy does. It's about power. It's about controlling narratives, controlling media, controlling information, controlling the kinds of movies that get made and get mass produced, right? It's interesting when I meet people from different parts of the world and I hear about the music that's allowed to become popular in their countries, or the movies and the TV shows that are allowed to be popularized in their countries, and the stars that are allowed to become popular in their country. It's not the way we think of here. Spike Lee movies and, I'm just naming people but Spike Lee movies and Ryan Coogler movies aren't as big overseas as they are here, right? And like black TV stars and movie stars are not as big as they are here. I know this because not only have I lived overseas and I was able to like monitor it my own self, but I'm able to talk to people and ask questions who are from different parts of the world, and they routinely, almost always, validate what I saw for myself and what I know, and I understand why this is.
Okay, you're good to go.
I have conversations with, my colleagues. Obviously, we're all educators, and we research education for a living, and we try to understand, how are our systems of education so wrong for so long? In other words, how is the United States able to maintain its status and stature as the leader, the global sort of force in the world? I mean, depends on who you ask, but I mean, that's what they say. That's what they say. And people around the world seem to believe that to be the case too, I guess. I don't know. I guess when you have militaries stationed strategically, literally all over the world, and you are, in fact, a bully, I guess people will say whatever you want them to say. Yeah, I don't know. I guess. I don't know. But given all of this power, this is a clear indication of power. And there are clear indications of money, economics and power, clear. Just on the face of it, the surface, and undeniable, indisputable.
Please spell white and use it in a sentence.
White. Honky. White. The man is a honky devil. White.
No, I'm sorry, that is incorrect, Black Dynamite.
White. 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 I would love to be an honorary white.
One of my colleagues asked a question in his research, is like, can blacks be racist? Can blacks be racist? Or, exchange the word black with any other group of people. Can they be racist? Really, the question is, I would reframe the question and ask, can blacks uphold white supremacy? Because that's really what racism is. It's white supremacy. Like, because people don't put racism and white supremacy together the way they are bound, they're not unbound. You can't untie them. You can't decouple them. They are one and the same. Now, if you're talking about prejudice, that's a different conversation. Racism and white supremacy is one thing. Prejudice is another thing. Prejudice almost has nothing to do with racism and white supremacy. Prejudice is simply you not liking something or someone based on their skin color or based on their cultural differences, or you just have a preference. Like as a Native American, for example, maybe he or she is prejudiced towards black people. Maybe black people are prejudiced towards Puerto Ricans. Maybe Puerto Ricans are prejudiced towards Haitians. Maybe Haitians are prejudiced toward, but that doesn't equate to racism and white supremacy. That's not what that is. Is your prejudice systemically, structurally hindering the economics of a group of people? Is it hindering the political will? Is it hindering the educational opportunities and possibilities? Is your prejudice doing that? No. Only racism and white supremacy does that. It also provides access to groups and restricts access. Only racism and white supremacy does that. Periodically, and for its own benefit, it allows other groups in, to sort of mask it, and so you have this multicultural conglomerate of sorts of racism and white supremacy, like those who are doing the bidding for racism and white supremacy. They're like a rainbow coalition of folks.
As you can see here, I enjoy building small shrines to certain special white people who are important in my life. This one here is dedicated to John Wayne, great white man. Didn't take no shit from niggas, Indians, nor Mexicans.
Now, this isn't to deny the agency of any group of people, obviously. I'm not saying that. That's elementary. We're not doing that. We understand that there are always exceptions to every rule and every system and every culture and every structure. No doubt. And racism and white supremacy is not excluded to that. But we have to be mindful of the long-standing history of racism, white supremacy. Remember, I located it in the 16th century, the start of the 16th century, and the start with the expansion, the European expansion across Africa and into Southeast Asia and throughout the Americas. These are the origins of racism and white supremacy. And so we can't allow racism and white supremacy to be decoupled, number one, and we can't allow the myriad of examples of prejudice to be mistaken as racism and white supremacy. Because remember, racism and white supremacy is one thing. Prejudice is a whole other thing. Prejudice isn't about power. It's about feelings and personal preference. Racism and white supremacy is about power, structure, system, and control. It's a juggernaut. Racism and white supremacy is a juggernaut. That's it for y'all now. Peace.
Word up, quick to set it, don't wet it. Real niggas lick shots, peace, Connecticut.
Yo, what up, yo? Time is running out. It's the real dope. Let's connect politics, ditto.